Hey everyone, and welcome! Today we're going to talk about some of the most important threads that make up who a child is: their race, their culture, and their language. Sometimes these ideas can feel like a big tangled knot, right? Well, in this explainer, we're going to gently pull on each thread one by one to see how they're all connected.
So let's start with the big question. We hear these words all the time: race, culture, ethnicity, but what do they really mean? And, maybe more importantly, why does getting this right actually matter for the kids you work with every single day? How does it help us create spaces where they can truly thrive?
So here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll untangle those key concepts. Then, we'll put on what I'm calling a cultural lens to really see the children we serve. After that, we'll get into some great strategies for welcoming newcomer families. We'll talk about the incredible power of language. And then, and this is the best part, we'll pull it all together so you can go from theory right into practice.
Okay, let's dive into our first section. You can't build a strong house without a solid foundation. Well, for this conversation, that foundation is making sure we're all on the same page with what these big words actually mean.
First up, let's talk about race. And this is a big one. The single most important thing to get is that race has absolutely no basis in biology or genetics. It's a social construct, it's a label really, based on how we see ourselves or how other people see us. It is not in our DNA. So those categories you see on a form, they're about shared experiences in society, not about shared genes.
Okay, next up is ethnicity. Now, this is all about group identity. Think of it as the invisible threads that tie people together through a shared past. A common ancestry, a collective history, maybe a shared language. It's that deep sense of connection a child feels when they hear their grandmother tell stories from the old country. It's about belonging.
And finally, we have culture. This is kind of the big umbrella term. Culture is the how of a group's life. It's the food, the music, the beliefs, the way you celebrate, the way you grieve. It's all those shared practices and values that make a group unique. And it's always changing, always evolving.
So, if you only take one single thing away from this first part, please let it be this. Race is a man-made idea. It is not a biological fact. Just understanding that one point helps us tear down so many harmful myths.
All right, so now that we've got our definitions straight, let's use them. Let's put on that cultural lens and see how all of this actually plays out in the real world, specifically with the children and families right here in California. Let's just start with the sheer scale of what we're talking about. There are over 2.5 million children under the age of 5 in California. Just think about that. That is a massive number of little minds that we get to help shape.
And look at the incredible diversity within that huge number. Fully half of these children are Latino, about a third are white non-Latino, and the rest make up this beautiful, rich tapestry of different backgrounds. And it's so important to remember that Latino is an ethnicity, not a race, so these kids can be of any race.
Now here's a really helpful framework for understanding some cultural differences. It's this idea of individualist versus collectivist cultures. So does a culture tend to put the focus on the individual or on the group? For instance, in a more individualist culture, a teacher might say, "Good job, that's your block tower." In a more collectivist one, the focus might be on, "Look what we all built together." Neither one is right or wrong, they're just different ways of seeing the world that really shape a child's experience. Okay, next, let's zoom in on the unique experiences of newcomer families. We're talking about immigrants, refugees, and asylees, and think about how we can welcome them from a place of real strength. We often hear these terms used like they're the same thing, but they mean very different things. An immigrant is someone who generally chooses to move. A refugee, on the other hand, is forced to flee their home because of persecution. And an asylee is someone who seeks that same protection, but they do it after they've already arrived. Understanding these different journeys is the first step toward real empathy.
When it comes to welcoming newcomer families, probably the most powerful thing we can do is make a mental shift. Instead of seeing what we think might be missing, we have to start by seeing their incredible strengths, their deep parenting experience, their rich cultural traditions, and the unbelievable sacrifices they have made for their kids.
So how do you actually do that? Well, here are 4 really practical things. 1. Just ask families about their background with genuine curiosity. 2. Tell them, out loud, that their culture and their language are respected here. 3. Explain what family engagement looks like in your program, because it might be totally different from what they're used to. And 4. Whenever you can, hire staff who look like and sound like the community you serve. It makes such a difference. All right, let's move on to one of the most powerful carriers of culture and identity there is: language. It is so much more than just a bunch of words. So first, let's get our terms right. A dual language learner, or a DLL, is just a child who is growing up with more than one language. And let's be super clear. This is not a deficit. This is an incredible superpower for their brain.
And this isn't some small niche group of kids we're talking about. Get this, a staggering 60% of all children under 5 in California are dual language learners. This is the new majority. This is the reality in our state, and our programs have to reflect that.
So why is it so important to encourage families to keep speaking their home language? Oh man, the benefits are huge. It actually boosts thinking skills. It keeps family bonds strong. It helps with self-control. It even leads to better jobs down the road. And here's the kicker. Having a strong foundation in your home language actually makes learning English easier, not harder.
Okay, we have untangled definitions, we've looked through a cultural lens, we've talked about language. Now it's time to bring it all home. Let's talk about a framework that turns all these big ideas into something you can actually do every single day.
And here it is. It's called the Culturally Responsive Strength-Based Framework. And it sounds fancy, but it's beautifully simple. The whole idea is to shift our focus away from what we think kids and families don't have to focusing on everything they do have. It's about seeing and building on the incredible knowledge and skills they bring through your door every day.
This quote just says it all, doesn't it? What you look for, you find. If you go looking for problems, trust me, you'll find them. But if you make a real choice to look for strengths and successes, you'll find those instead. And it changes your entire perspective.
And I love this one too, because it gets at the energy of this whole idea. It's contagious. When you start focusing on strengths, it creates this positive, empowering vibe that just makes sense. It's about seeing every child's cup is already half full and just waiting for us to help fill it up even more.
So I want to end with a challenge for you. Thinking about everything we've untangled today, what is one new specific thing you can do this week to actively find and celebrate the unique cultural strengths of a child or a family in your program? The answer just might change everything for them and for you. Thanks so much for joining me.